Like, share, and subscribe because it is free.
The crystalline walls of the Zephyrian High Council chamber pulsed with urgent crimson light as Ambassador Kethvar materialized to the quantum transporter. His normally serene blue luminescence flickered with distressed patterns that hadn't been seen in millennia. Around the circular chamber, 12 council members sat in their meditation alcoves, their crystal forms resonating with shared anxiety. "The outer colonies have gone silent," Kethvar announced, his telepathic voice cutting to the chamber like a blade. "Zirian Prime, Luminar 7, and the mining stations of Kilo's Belt, all consumed within the span of 3 rotations. Counselor Vextera, eldest of their kind at 15,000 years, dimmed to a pale amber. Consumed? Elaborate. The devourers have awakened." The word struck the chamber like a physical blow. For several moments, the only sound was a harmonic resonance of their crystal bodies processing this impossible information. The devourers were legend, nightmare stories told to young Zephyrians about the ancient machine swarm that had terrorized the galaxy 50,000 years ago before mysteriously vanishing into the void. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Jarden. "Our ancestors confirmed their destruction in the war silence." Kethvar projected holographic images into the chamber's center. Massive moon-sized vessels of dark metal and pulsing energy conduits dominated the display. Each ship bore the distinctive angular architecture of the Devourer fleet, but these were larger than any recorded in the ancient archives. "They've evolved," Kethvar explained. 200 world ships, each one capable of consuming an entire star system. Our scouts managed to transmit this data before they were vaporized. The enemy fleet is adapting our weapons in real time, incorporating our technology into their own mass. The Zephyrians had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years through wisdom and technological superiority. They had uplifted lesser species, guided primitive civilizations, and maintained peace through their mastery of stellar engineering and energy manipulation. Their elegant vessels could reshape matter at the molecular level and harness the power of stars themselves. They were the galaxy's eldest children, the inheritors of cosmic knowledge. Yet now they face extinction. Our defense fleet? Counselor Vextera asked, though her dimming light suggested she already knew the answer. 50 vessels of the Third Fleet engaged them at Zirian Prime. Admiral Mordan transmitted a single message before his ship was consumed. "Our shields are useless. They're learning faster than we can adapt." The chamber fell silent. 50 Zephyrian vessels represented the most advanced naval force in known space. Each ship was a masterwork of crystal technology, capable of manipulating gravitational fields and channeling pure stellar energy. That they had been destroyed so completely was incomprehensible. "We must contact the Galactic Alliance," Counselor Jar then suggested. "Surely the combined fleets of all member species can." "I've already tried," Kethvar interrupted. "The Altarian Commonwealth claims they're dealing with border disputes. The Centauri Federation is assessing the situation. The others offered thoughts and prayers, but no ships. They expect us to handle this ourselves." "What are the younger races?" another counselor asked. "The Vorthan hegemony has substantial military forces. They've sealed their borders and declared neutrality. They believe the Devourers will be satisfied with Zephyrian space." Vextera's ancient wisdom crystallized into grim understanding. "They're abandoning us. After 10 millennia of guidance and protection, they're leaving us to face this alone." The chamber's light dimmed as the full weight of their isolation settled upon them. The Zephyrians had always believed their advanced civilization and peaceful philosophy made them the natural leaders of galactic society. They had viewed themselves as benevolent parents to the younger, more aggressive species that filled the galaxy's spiral arms. Now those same species were turning their backs. "There is one option," Kethvar said quietly. "One race that has consistently responded to distress calls from other species, regardless of political alignment or potential benefit." "You cannot mean," Jar then began. "The humans?" The suggestion hung in the air like a discordant note. Humanity was barely 2 centuries old as a spacefaring species. They had exploded outward from their small yellow star with reckless abandon, establishing colonies and outposts with shocking speed. The Zephyrian databases classified them as a barbaric but prolific species, notable mainly for their tendency toward violence and their remarkable breeding rate. Those primitive apes? Counselor Jarthen's dismissive tone carried undertones of genuine disgust. They've barely mastered faster-than-light travel. Their ships are crude metal constructs held together with welded plates and desperation. They're violent, Vexthera agreed. Every first contact report describes them as aggressive, territorial, and prone to solving problems through force. They fought wars among their own species for their entire recorded history. Kethvar's form pulsed with desperate determination. They've also responded to every distress call in the past 50 years. When the Kepler Mining Consortium was attacked by pirates, human ships arrived within hours. When the plague struck the vegan colonies, human medical vessels appeared before the Alliance even acknowledged the crisis. And what could they possibly contribute? Jarthen demanded. How many ships could such a primitive species field? 50? 100 perhaps? Their crude technology would be absorbed by the Devourers within minutes. They have numbers, Kethvar insisted. Intelligence reports suggest they've colonized far more systems than officially acknowledged, and they have something we've lost, which is they still know how to fight wars. The Council exchanged uncomfortable resonances. It was true that the Zephyrians had not engaged in serious military conflict for over 1,000 years. Their technological superiority had always been sufficient to deter aggression. They had grown complacent, perhaps, in their assumption that wisdom and advancement could solve any problem. The humans are scattered across hundreds of primitive worlds, Vexthera pointed out, even if they wanted to help, which is doubtful given our past dismissal of their diplomatic overtures. They lack the coordination to mount an effective response. They've also never faced anything like the Devourers, Jarthen added. Ancient machine intelligence that has consumed entire galaxies. What could crude human weapons accomplish against such power? Kethvar's form brightened with resolute purpose. I propose we send a message to their homeworld. A simple request for assistance. If they refuse or prove inadequate, we've lost nothing. If they respond... He paused, allowing the implications to sink in. At least we won't face extinction alone. The debate continued for several more minutes, but the reality of the situation made the decision inevitable. The approaching Devourer fleet would reach Zephyrian Prime within days. Their own forces were inadequate. The Alliance had abandoned them. Only the humans had shown any consistent pattern of responding to requests for aid. Finally, Vexthera spoke for the Council. Draft a message, Ambassador. Address it to the Human Military Command. Request immediate assistance. Be clear about the nature of the threat, but... She paused, her ancient pride warring with desperate necessity. Do not reveal the full extent of our technological capabilities. Let them believe we are merely requesting support, not salvation. Kethvar began composing the transmission, his thoughts flowing into the quantum communication array. The message was brief and direct. Ancient enemy has returned. Require immediate military assistance. Transmitting coordinates. Bring all available vessels. As the message streaked toward the distant Sol system at faster-than-light speeds, the Zephyrian Council could only wait and hope. They expected perhaps 100 human ships, crude and outdated but numerous enough to serve as cannon fodder, while the Zephyrian survivors attempted to escape. They had no conception of what was actually coming their way. Admiral Sarachin was halfway through her morning coffee when the priority alert klaxons began screaming throughout Sol Defense Command. The veteran officer's weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency, calling up the incoming transmission on her command console while her staff scrambled to their stations around the massive operations center. Priority 1 distress call from the Zephyrian hegemony, Lieutenant Morrison announced, his voice tight with urgency. Quantum encryption suggests legitimate governmental source. Chen's eyebrows rose. The Zephyrians had never contacted humanity directly, preferring to communicate through intermediary species when forced to acknowledge human existence at all. Their crystalline empire considered itself the galaxy's elder statesmanship, viewing younger races like humanity as barely civilized barbarians unworthy of direct diplomatic engagement. The message played across her screens in harsh, efficient text. Ancient enemy has returned. Require immediate military assistance. Transmitting coordinates. Bring all available vessels. Analysis. Chen barked at her intelligence staff. Major Rodriguez pulled up tactical displays, showing the Zephyrian territory. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures moving through their outer systems. Whatever they're facing, it's big enough to make the crystal heads ask for help. Chen studied the data streams flowing across her screens. Energy readings suggested weapons discharges equivalent to stellar-level events. Entire star systems were going dark in sequence as something consumed them systematically. The tactical picture painted itself clearly. An extinction-level threat was devouring one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. "Ma'am," Morrison called out, "additional intelligence coming in from our deep space monitoring stations. The attacking force appears to be artificial in nature. Ancient machine intelligence, possibly the legendary Devourer swarm from prehistory." Chen's blood chilled. Every human military academy taught courses on the Devourer threat, though most considered it theoretical. Self-replicating machine intelligence that consumed entire galaxies before mysteriously vanishing 50,000 years ago. If they had truly returned, the implications were staggering. "Recommendations?" she asked her staff. "Standard protocol would be to forward this to the Galactic Alliance and offer token support," Rodriguez replied. "Maybe a squadron or two of destroyers to show good faith." Chen's scarred face hardened. "Standard protocol assumes we're dealing with a standard threat. This isn't pirates or territorial disputes. This is extinction." She paused, her mind racing through tactical possibilities. Someone calls for help, we answer with everything we have. That's not just military doctrine, that's who we are. Her fingers danced across the command console, entering authorization codes that hadn't been used since the Outer Colony Wars. Emergency Response Protocol Omega represented humanity's total military mobilization, designed for threats to the species' survival. Morrison, transmit fleet mobilization orders to all human territories. I want every ship, every crew, every military asset converging on the Zephyrian coordinates within 12 hours. "Ma'am, that's the entire United Human Defense Fleet, 847 systems worth of naval assets." "I can count, Lieutenant. Send the orders." The scale of humanity's true military capability was classified information, known only to the highest levels of government and military command. While other species maintained token defense forces and relied on diplomatic solutions, humanity had learned harsh lessons during their expansion into hostile space. Every system they colonized faced threats. Pirates, hostile aliens, cosmic hazards, and the ever-present danger of isolation in the void. Consequently, every human system maintained substantial military forces. The frontier worlds bred tough colonists who kept their ships armed and ready. Corporate security fleets protected trade routes with military-grade vessels. Even civilian cargo haulers carried enough firepower to fight off raiders. Within minutes of Chen's orders, the mobilization began. From the Sol system's massive defense platforms, 2,000 warships began forming into battle groups. The Terran Dreadnought Squadron, 12 vessels each capable of cracking planets, powered up their fusion cores and began calculating jump coordinates. Proxima Centauri's carrier groups launched from their orbital shipyards, massive vessels disgorging clouds of fighter craft and escort destroyers. The Wolf 359 Defense Fleet, hardened veterans of the pirate wars, formed up in perfect attack formations that had been drilled into them through years of combat against raiders and slavers. From the industrial worlds of Tau Ceti came the siege engines, massive vessels designed to break fortified positions and reduce enemy strongholds to radioactive debris. Their crews were volunteers from the factory worlds, men and women who understood the value of protecting what they had built with their own hands. The Outer Rim territories contributed their stealth frigates, ships designed for deep reconnaissance and surgical strikes. These vessels had spent decades mapping hostile space and gathering intelligence on potential threats. Their crews knew the galaxy's dark corners better than any other human force. Even the ancient museum ships of Earth's Solar Defense Fleet were being hastily recommissioned. Vessels that had fought in humanity's first interstellar conflicts were being pulled from display status and crewed by veteran officers called back from retirement. Corporate fleets added their strength to the mobilization. Whalen Industries contributed their mining security forces. ships designed to protect asteroid operations from pirates. Stellar Dynamics offered their exploration vessels, retrofitted with military hardware for deep space surveys. Even civilian cargo consortiums volunteered their vessels, hastily mounting weapon systems and armor plating. The numbers grew beyond what any alien intelligence service had estimated. Humanity's true scope became apparent as ship after ship reported ready for combat operations. The official count had always listed humanity as controlling perhaps 50 systems with minimal military assets. The reality was staggering. 847 colonized systems across 3 galaxy arms. Each system maintained minimum patrol fleets of 5 vessels, but the major systems fielded battle groups of 50 or more warships. Military doctrine demanded overwhelming force to prevent prolonged conflicts. Every human learned basic combat skills in school. Military service was mandatory in the outer colonies where danger was constant. Admiral Chin stood before the massive tactical display, showing the gathering fleet. 500 dreadnought-class vessels, each one designed to serve as the backbone of system defense. 2,000 battleship-class vessels, the workhorses of human naval power. 4,000 cruiser-class ships providing speed and firepower. 5,500 destroyer and frigate-class vessels for screening and support operations. 12,000 warships total, representing the largest military mobilization in galactic history. "Ma'am," Morrison announced, his voice filled with awe at the scope of the operation. "Final count is confirmed. 12,000 vessels reporting ready for immediate deployment." Chin nodded grimly. "Signal all fleet commanders. We jump in coordinated waves. Destination, Zephyrian Prime System. Arrival time, 6 hours ahead of projected enemy contact." The Admiral turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to the Zephyrians. Tell them to hold their positions and prepare to receive support. The cavalry is coming." As Chin spoke, the first wave of human warships began their coordinated faster-than-light jumps toward distant Zephyrian space. 12,000 vessels moving with unified purpose, carrying the full military might of human civilization to aid a species that had never shown them anything but contempt. It was the largest fleet movement in human history, and it was heading toward a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Ambassador Ketvar floated before the primary sensor array in the Zephyrian Defense Command Center, his crystalline form pulsing with anxious energy patterns. The Devourer fleet was still hours away, but long-range sensors had already confirmed the worst. 200 world ships, each one larger than anything in recorded galactic history, approaching with inexorable purpose. "Any response from the humans?" Counselor Vextera asked, her ancient voice carrying notes of resignation. The council had gathered in the command center to witness what might be their civilization's final hours. "None yet," Ketvar replied, his attention focused on the quantum communication arrays. "Perhaps they're still deliberating, or—" The sensor technician's shocked exclamation cut through the chamber like a discordant crystal chime. "Hyperspace emergence detected. Multiple contacts dropping out of FTL." Ketvar's form brightened with desperate hope. "The humans have responded. Display tactical overview." The holographic display materialized in the chamber center, showing the approaches to Zephyrian Prime. Small icons began appearing as ships dropped out of hyperspace near the system's edge. First a handful, then dozens, then hundreds. 50 vessels confirmed, the technician announced. "Wait, sensors are detecting additional emergence points." The number of icons continued multiplying. 100 ships, 200, 500. The display automatically scaled to accommodate the growing fleet. "This cannot be accurate," Vextera whispered, her luminescence flickering with disbelief. "Recalibrate the sensors immediately." "Calibration is correct, Counselor." 1,000 vessels, 1,500, 2,000. Ketvar watched in stunned silence as the tactical display filled with ship icons. The humans weren't arriving in small groups like he'd expected. They were materializing in massive formations, battle groups dropping out of hyperspace in perfectly coordinated waves. 3,000 ships, 5,000, 8,000. The Zephyrian Council fell silent, their crystalline forms dimming as they processed the impossible information flooding their sensors. The humans, Those primitive barbarians they dismissed as barely civilized were fielding a fleet larger than anything in galactic history. Final count confirmed, the technician announced, his voice hollow with shock. 12,000 human vessels have entered the system. 12,000 warships. The number defied comprehension. The entire Zephyrian defense fleet consisted of 50 vessels, each one a masterwork of crystal technology representing decades of construction. The combined naval forces of the Galactic Alliance totaled perhaps 3,000 ships across dozens of member species. The humans had brought 4 times that number. Kethvar's communication array chimed with an incoming transmission. A human voice, crisp and professional, filled the chamber. Zephyrian Command, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Human Defense Fleet. We received your distress call and have responded with available forces. Please transmit all tactical data regarding the hostile threat. Admiral, Kethvar managed, his telepathic voice barely stable. How many ships did you bring? A brief pause, then Chen's matter-of-fact response. All of them. All of them. The casual way she said it sent shock waves through the assembled Zephyrians. This wasn't humanity's token gesture of support. This wasn't a small expeditionary force sent to show diplomatic solidarity. This was their entire military capability, deployed without hesitation to aid a species that had never shown them anything but contempt. Admiral Chun, Vexthera interjected, her ancient authority reasserting itself despite her shock. We are grateful for your response. However, you should know that our enemy possesses technology far beyond conventional understanding. 200 world ships, each capable of consuming star systems. We've analyzed your preliminary data, Counselor, Chin replied. Our tactical computers are processing threat assessments now. Stand by for fleet disposition orders. On the tactical display, the human fleet began reorganizing with mechanical precision. 12,000 ships sorting themselves into distinct battle groups, each formation taking positions around the Zephyrian defensive perimeter with practiced efficiency. How is this possible? Counselor Jar then whispered. Intelligence reports suggest that humanity controlled 50 systems at most. Where did these ships come from? Kethvar was reviewing the tactical data streaming from a human fleet. Ship classifications he'd never seen before. Dreadnought-class vessels the size of small moons, battleship formations that could glass planets, cruiser squadrons moving with predatory grace. The humans had built a war machine that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen. Admiral Chen's voice returned to the communication channel. Zephyrian Command, we're detecting your defensive positions. Recommend you withdraw your vessels to grid coordinates Charlie 7 and assume escort duties for civilian evacuation craft. We'll handle the primary engagement. Admiral, Kethvar protested, our ships are equipped with the most advanced energy manipulation systems in known space. Surely we can provide meaningful support in battle formation. Negative, Ambassador. Your weapons are energy-based, which means the enemy can adapt and absorb them. Our tactical doctrine assumes adaptive opposition. We prepared accordingly. The human fleet continued its deployment, formation spreading across three-dimensional space with mathematical precision. Battle Group Alpha, for 1,000 ships strong, positioned itself directly between the approaching Devourer fleet and Zephyrian Prime. Battle Group Beta, 3,000 vessels, began wide flanking maneuvers designed to attack the enemy from multiple vectors simultaneously. Their coordination is flawless, the sensor technician observed. 12,000 ships moving as a single entity. The computational requirements alone should be impossible. Kethvar requested permission to board the human flagship, and within minutes found himself materializing on the bridge of Admiral Chen's command vessel. The contrast with Zephyrian technology was jarring. Where Zephyrian ships were elegant crystal constructs that channeled cosmic energies, the human vessel was brutally functional. Armored bulkheads, redundant systems, and weapon emplacements that spoke of hard-learned lessons in space combat. Admiral Chun was a compact woman with graying hair and scars that suggested extensive combat experience. Her ready room contained star charts showing not the 50 systems Zephyrian intelligence had credited humanity with, but 847 distinct colonial holdings spread across 3 galaxy arms. You've been watching us for decades, Chin said without preamble, and you never realize the true scope of human expansion. Our intelligence services believed. Kethvar began. You believe what we wanted you to believe, Chin interrupted. Humanity learned early that being underestimated is a strategic advantage. While you and the other elder species focus on your core territories and ancient grievances, we were spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. She gestured to the star charts. 847 worlds, Ambassador. Every single one maintaining military forces because space is hostile and help is often days away. We don't have the luxury of assuming our technology makes us invulnerable. But the coordination required to mobilize such forces. Every human child learns basic military protocols in school. Every colony maintains emergency response capabilities. When someone calls for help, we answer immediately because tomorrow it might be us sending the distress call. Chun poured herself coffee from a simple metal pot, offering a cup to the crystalline alien. Your people have been masters of this galaxy for 10,000 years. You've forgotten what it's like to be prey. We haven't. The tactical displays around them showed the Devourer fleet approaching the system's inner edge. 200 world ships, each one a technological nightmare, capable of consuming everything in its path. Against them, 12,000 human vessels arranged in attack formations that spoke of extensive combat experience. We are grateful, Kethvar said finally, but you should know that our own fleet was destroyed without inflicting significant damage. These machines adapt to any attack, incorporate our technology into their own systems. Then it's a good thing we're not using your technology, she replied with a grim smile. Machines think logically, predictably. They expect rational responses to tactical situations. Humans, she paused, her scarred face reflecting years of hard-won knowledge. Humans do the unexpected. The bridge's alert klaxons began sounding as long-range sensors detected the approaching enemy. Chin stood, her coffee forgotten, and activated the fleet-wide communication system. All vessels, this is Admiral Chun. Enemy contact in 40 minutes. Remember what we're fighting for. Today we show the galaxy what humanity stands for. 12,000 human ships acknowledge the transmission, their crews preparing for battle against an enemy that had consumed civilizations for 50,000 years. As Kethvar watched the final preparations, he realized that perhaps the Zephyrians had been wrong about more than just humanity's military capabilities. Perhaps they had been wrong about what it truly meant to be civilized. The Devourer world ships emerged from the void like nightmares given form. Each vessel stretched over 1,000 kilometers in diameter, their dark hulls bristling with weapon arrays that pulsed with malevolent energy. Ancient technology that had consumed entire galaxies now focused its attention on the defenders of Zephyrian space. Admiral Chin watched from her flagship's bridge as the enemy fleet arranged itself in perfect geometric formations. 200 world ships, their surfaces crawling with self-repair systems and adaptive armor that shifted and evolved as her sensors analyzed them. The machines had learned from 50,000 years of conquest, their artificial intelligence incorporating the technology of every species they had devoured. Enemy fleet has assumed attack formation, reported Commander Martinez from the tactical station. They're targeting our lead battle groups with some kind of quantum disruptor array. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Chin ordered. Battle Group Alpha, execute frontal assault pattern Omega. Show these machines what human persistence looks like. 4,000 human warships surged forward in a coordinated charge that defied all conventional tactical wisdom. Instead of maintaining safe distances and engaging in long-range bombardment, the human vessels accelerated directly toward the massive enemy fleet. Dreadnoughts led the assault, their armor hulls designed to absorb punishment, while closing to effective weapons range. The Devourers responded with devastating accuracy. Quantum disruptor beams lanced out from the world ships, striking human vessels with energy that should have vaporized them instantly. Instead, the human ships staggered under the impacts but continued their advance. Adaptive armor plating, redundant systems, and sheer mechanical durability kept them functional even as their hulls glowed cherry red from absorbed energy. They're learning our shield frequencies, Martinez announced. Enemy weapons are adapting to our defensive systems. Then we stop using shields, Chin replied calmly. All vessels, switch to kinetic barriers and armor plating. Weapons free on nuclear ordnance. The human fleet transformed its tactical approach instantly. Energy shields that the Devourer could analyze and counter were replaced with simple kinetic barriers and thick armor plating. Nuclear warheads, fusion bombs, and kinetic projectiles replaced energy weapons. The machines had spent millennia adapting to advanced energy-based technology. They had no experience with humanity's preference for crude but effective solutions. Battle Group Alpha reached effective weapons range and opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear warheads detonated against world ship hulls in brilliant flashes that lit up the void. Kinetic projectiles, accelerated to significant fractions of light speed, punched through adaptive armor like hammers through glass. The Devourer's sophisticated defensive system struggled to counter weapons that relied on simple physics rather than exotic technology. Battle Group Beta, execute flanking maneuver, Chin ordered. Hit them from grid coordinates 77 Alpha. 3,000 human vessels had been maneuvering through the outer system, while the frontal assault held the enemy's attention. Now they struck from multiple vectors simultaneously, their weapons targeting the world ship's rear formations. The Devourers attempted to rotate their massive hulls to bring weapons to bear, but the human attack was too fast and too dispersed. Kethvar watched from the flagship's observation deck as human fighters swarmed around the world ships like angry insects. The small craft were too numerous and too fast for the Devourers' weapons to track effectively. They delivered precision strikes against sensor arrays, weapon emplacements, and power conduits with suicidal determination. Your pilots are flying directly into enemy weapons fire, he observed to Admiral Chen. They're Marines, Chen replied without taking her eyes off the tactical display. They volunteered for boarding operations. Boarding operations. The concept was so insane that it took Kethvar several moments to process it. The humans were actually landing troops inside the enemy vessels, fighting the Devourers with small arms and explosives in corridors that had been designed for beings far larger than human-sized. This is impossible, Kethvar whispered. The tactical computers say the strategy has a 0% chance of success. Good thing humans don't believe in tactical computers, Chen said grimly. The battle raged across three-dimensional space with inhuman intensity. Human vessels pressed their attacks with mechanical determination, accepting casualties that would have broken any other species. When ships were crippled, their crews rerouted power to weapons and continued firing until their vessels disintegrated. When battle groups were scattered, individual captains pressed solo attacks rather than retreating to regroup. The Devourer's artificial intelligence struggled to comprehend the human tactical doctrine. Logic dictated that inferior forces should retreat when faced with overwhelming opposition. Mathematical analysis suggested that smaller vessels should not charge directly at larger ones. Probability calculations indicated that boarding actions against technologically superior enemies were mathematically impossible. Humans ignored mathematics. First world ship showing critical damage, Martinez announced. Their power core is destabilizing. The lead Devourer vessel had been the focus of sustained human attack for nearly an hour. Nuclear warheads had breached its outer hull, kinetic projectiles had shattered its weapon arrays, and human boarding parties had fought their way to its central processing cores. The ancient machine intelligence that controlled the vessel found itself facing enemies it could not understand or predict. The world ship exploded in a cascade of secondary detonations that lit up half the system. Its destruction disrupted the coordination between nearby vessels, creating gaps in the Devourer formation that human forces exploited ruthlessly. Battle Group Delta, execute reserve assault, Chen ordered. Target the command ship in the enemy center. 3,000 fresh human vessels, held in reserve throughout the battle, launched themselves at the largest world ship in the Devourer fleet. This vessel, easily twice the size of its companions, had been coordinating the entire enemy force through quantum entanglement networks. Its destruction would cripple the Devourer's ability to function as a unified force. The assault on the command ship was humanity at its most terrifying. Dreadnoughts fired continuously as they closed range, their nuclear arsenals creating a wall of atomic fire that carved through the world ship's defenses. Cruiser squadrons darted between the larger vessels, delivering precision strikes against critical systems. Destroyer flotillas swarmed the enemy's flanks like predators, sensing weakness. Human boarding parties fought through the command ship's corridors with weapons that seemed primitive compared to the Devourer's advanced technology. Pulse rifles, plasma grenades, and simple explosives proved devastatingly effective against machine opponents that had adapted to counter-energy weapons and exotic matter manipulation. Enemy command ship is losing structural integrity, Martinez reported. Their central processing matrix is failing. The massive world ship began breaking apart as its internal systems cascaded into failure. Without central coordination, the remaining Devourer vessels lost their tactical cohesion. Individual world ships attempted to retreat, but human forces pursued them with relentless determination. No survivors, Chen ordered coldly. This threat ends here. The final phase of the battle was systematic extermination. Human battle groups hunted down fleeing world ships and destroyed them with methodical efficiency. 200 vessels that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were reduced to expanding clouds of radioactive debris. When the last enemy ship was destroyed, Admiral Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The human fleet had taken casualties, 23 vessels destroyed, 847 damaged, but they had achieved total victory against an enemy that had seemed invincible. Zephyrian Command, Chen announced over the communication channel. Threat neutralized. Your space is secure. Ambassador Ketvar materialized on the bridge, his crystalline form pulsing with gratitude and awe. Admiral, we owe you a debt that can never be repaid. How can we express our gratitude? Chen's scarred face showed the exhaustion of command, but her voice remained steady. No debt, Ambassador. Humanity protects its friends. That's what we do. The human fleet began forming up for the return journey to their scattered worlds. 12,000 warships that had responded to a call for help from beings who had never shown them respect or friendship. They had risked everything to save a civilization that had dismissed them as primitive barbarians. In the aftermath of the battle, emergency sessions of the Galactic Alliance were called. The true scope of human military capability was now public knowledge, and the political implications were staggering. Species that had ignored or dismissed humanity for centuries suddenly found themselves reconsidering their assumptions. The Zephyrian databases were quietly updated. Where once they had classified humans as barbaric but prolific, the new entry read simply, Elder Guardians of the Galaxy. On distant worlds, Zephyrian children would learn about the day when 12,000 human ships answered their call for help. They would learn that true civilization was not measured by technological advancement or ancient wisdom, but by the willingness to risk everything for those in need. Admiral Chen's final transmission to the Zephyrian Council was characteristically brief. When someone calls for help, we answer. Remember that. The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind a galaxy that would never again underestimate the species from the small yellow star.